You're watching FISM News.
Swedbank has canceled the severance pay of former CEO Bridget Bonnesen after a report by its law firm said she failed to address deficiencies in the bank's anti-money laundering controls during her time in the position. In January 2019, Bonnesen denied that the bank was involved in a money laundering scandal emerging in the Baltic region, which also engulfed Danish rival Danske Bank. However, she was ousted in March, only an hour before Swedbank's annual meeting, as investors lost faith in her handling of the crisis. Shares in Swedbank lost a third of their value after the emergence of the money laundering breaches, which prompted the dismissal of Bonnesen and much of the board. Last week, Sweden's financial watchdog fined the bank a record number equivalent to $385 million over the breaches. Swedbank chairman Goran Persson said the fine would not affect the bank's ability to pay its proposed shareholder payout for 2019, though they are evaluating the effects of COVID-19 before making a final decision on dividends. Swedish media have reported Bonnesen's severance pay to be about 20 million crowns or $1.9 million. Swedbank did not immediately respond to a request to confirm the sums involved.
California wildfires made headlines in the fall of 2019. We shared with our viewers that Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E, equipment that had not been properly de-energized was accused of causing one of the massive blazes in Sonoma County. Now that same corporation, PG&E, said that it has agreed to plead guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter in a settlement with the Butte County District Attorney's Office for the utility's role in previous year's deadly fires. The company filed for Chapter 11 protection in January last year, citing the potential liabilities in excess of $30 billion from deadly wildfires in 2017 and 2018 linked to its equipment. Wall Street slipped on Monday as the spread of COVID-19 forced more U.S. states into lockdown. After cutting interest rates to near zero and offering to purchase more Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities last week, the central bank now decided to lend against student loans and credit card loans. It has also decided to buy bonds of larger employers. These moves briefly lifted the U.S. stock index futures more than 3%, but the mounting death toll from COVID-19 and threats of economic damage to corporate America quickly sent the main indexes back into the red. Investors had hoped the U.S. Senate would clear a $1 trillion plus coronavirus stimulus package over the weekend, but Democrats and Republicans were still negotiating on an agreement. Ohio, Louisiana, and Delaware have now joined New York and California in asking people to stay home, foreshadowing a near halt in economic activity and more pain for U.S. equities, which have already lost more than $9 trillion in value in the biggest sell-off since the financial crisis.
The UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, called on Tuesday for an immediate nationwide ceasefire across Syria to enable an all-out effort to stamp out COVID-19. In a statement, Pedersen also appealed on humanitarian grounds for large-scale releases of detainees and abductees in Syria and steps to make sure adequate medical care is provided to inmates. Syria announced its first case on Sunday after unconfirmed reports suggested the virus had been detected but covered up a charge officials denied. The spread of COVID-19 to Syria brings the prospect of a deadly outbreak to a population devastated by 9 years of war. According to medical staff, overwhelmed hospitals and tightly packed camps are likely to accelerate infection. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has called for a return to normality on Tuesday after Brazil's biggest cities went into lockdown to stop the spread of the coronavirus. So far, Bolsonaro has resisted calling for Brazilians to stay at home and for businesses to close, taking the position that jobs must be prioritized over the economically damaging shutdowns favored by public health experts. Bolsonaro has criticized governors and mayors who have taken shutdown measures. Bolsonaro's approval ratings have taken a beating. A recent survey published by the Datafolha polling firm showed that only 34% of Brazilians polled thought the president's job performance was great or good, the lowest level since he took office last year. The U.S. Senate's unanimous passage of a $2 trillion coronavirus relief bill sent the unprecedented economic legislation to the House of Representatives. The Democratic House leaders hope to pass the legislation on Friday. The package is intended to flood the country with cash in attempts to ease the crushing impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the economy. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said, "When there's a crisis of this magnitude, the private sector cannot solve it." A group of Danish entrepreneurs have started a charity network that stands ready to make up to 20,000 protective visors a day using 3D printers, in an attempt to meet rising demand from doctors and nurses combating the coronavirus outbreak. With hospitals in Denmark and other countries stretched as they treat a rising number of patients infected with the coronavirus, traditional supply chains have failed to meet global demand for facial masks and other protective gear. Earlier in March, the World Health Organization said the coronavirus outbreak has caused a global shortage of protective equipment that sent prices on protective gowns, masks, and respirators soaring. 3D printing is one innovative way to fill in the gap. More than 250 printers around Denmark are currently part of the project. A group of 32 U.S. states are sending a message to nation's leading online platforms: do more to stop price gouging amid the coronavirus crisis. In a letter sent on Wednesday to Amazon, Walmart, Facebook, and eBay, a bipartisan group of U.S. attorneys general outlined specific steps it wants the online platforms to take to end this practice. The steps include triggering price gouging protections prior to emergency declarations in a state, being proactive in setting policies and restrictions on sellers instead of playing catch-up, and creating a fair pricing page where consumers can report incidents. Pennsylvania's Attorney General Josh Shapiro is leading the effort along with attorneys general from Connecticut, Vermont, and New Mexico. Shapiro said his office had received approximately 2,900 tips of price gouging on online platforms and brick-and-mortar stores in the past 8 to 9 days. The office has issued 90 cease and desist orders to sellers engaged in the activity. He said if these orders fail to deter merchants, his office can fine them up to $10,000 per violation. The United Kingdom announced it will use firefighters to help deliver food, retrieve bodies of the deceased, and drive ambulances as the country braces for the peak of the coronavirus outbreak. Britain initially took a modest approach to COVID-19, but then changed tack to impose stringent controls after projections showed 250,000 British people could die. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ordered a virtual lockdown of the world's fifth largest economy, banning citizens from leaving their homes for all non-essential reasons. Johnson himself has tested positive for coronavirus Friday morning and is self-isolating at his Downing Street residence. He said he would still lead the government's response to the accelerating spread. To cope with the outbreak, Britain has already asked tens of thousands of retired doctors and healthcare workers to return to work, while hundreds of thousands of people have volunteered to assist the state-run National Health Service. Brazil will cut back on efforts to fight environmental crimes during the coronavirus outbreak, despite concerns that reduced protection could lead to a spike in deforestation. Brazil is home to roughly 60% of the Amazon, the world's largest tropical rainforest, which absorbs vast amounts of greenhouse gases, a main contributor to climate change. IBAMA Director of Environmental Protection Olivaldi Azevedo said the outbreak has left him little choice but to send fewer enforcement personnel into the field because of the highly contagious virus. He estimated that 1/3 of IBAMA's field operatives are close to 60 years old or have medical conditions that put them at greater risk for severe symptoms of the virus. Nespresso, the maker of coffee brewing pods and machines, announced on Thursday they found child labor at 3 out of the 374 farms where it buys coffee in Guatemala's Frejana region. The Nestle-owned coffee giant said it would double the number of agronomists it employed in the region to check on conditions on local farms. They will also improve a program providing safe spaces for children during harvest season and increase education and awareness programs. Nespresso also said it would set up a hotline for reporting suspected violations and stop buying coffee from the 3 farms until they provided proof of compliance with the International Labor Organization's child protection requirements.
Thank you for watching. This has been FISM News.